Today we're going to be shedding some light on flashlights. See what I did there? Hey everyone, it's SpookyLoopz and I hope you're kicking the day's ass. In today's video I'm going to be showing you the ins and outs in regards to flashlights and flashlight saves. I see people all the time say that they suck at flashlights or they don't fully understand how the timing works, so hopefully after this video you'll have a better idea of how to use them. Let's start with the basics. Flashlights are used primarily to blind the killer. Well, that's obvious, but how you use them could be a huge game changer if performed correctly. The most common way I see players use their flashlights are when they're in chase and they drop a pallet. If the killer decides to break the pallet, they're locked into a 3-second animation. This is where most survivors use their flashlight to blind the killer. Now, what you do with that time while the killer is blind is entirely up to you, but I recommend creating some distance. Similar to blinding the killer at the pallet, if a killer ever decides to vault the window behind you during a chase, you can use your flashlight to blind them here as well, because they're also locked into an animation. That's easy enough, and I'm sure the majority of you already know that. So let's move on to some more advanced techniques. When your teammates get down by the killer, you'll be given the opportunity to save them with your flashlight. If aimed accurately and timed correctly, you'll free them from certain doom. But this is where I've noticed the most frustration from players. The mechanic of the game only allows for a small window to perform the save. And if performed wrong, you'll receive the killer blind notification. But that's about it. Timing is key here. So let's break it down. When the killer starts their picking up animation, you need to pay close attention to what their model is doing. They reach for the survivor, grabs hold of them, and then brings them to the shoulder. So here's where the timing comes in. Once the killer starts the motion of lifting the survivor off the ground, you need to count to 3 seconds. 1, 2, blind. Until you naturally get used to the timing, counting in your head will be the easiest way to adapt to this mechanic. Now, you don't have to be exactly in front of the killer for this to work. Imagine that the killer has a cone coming out of its model. As long as you're standing within the cone, and aiming for the face of course, you'll get the blind. But once you step outside of the imaginary cone, you won't be able to. Notice how the beam narrows when you start blinding the killer. That means you've locked onto the killer's face and you'll start hearing a slight burning sound. When you're outside of the cone or out of range, well, it'll just look stupid. Now that we understand the general concept of a save, let's move on to some different scenarios. Killers have the ability to grab survivors when they're performing rushed actions, or even working on generators. Don't worry, you can still save them from this as well. The timing is exactly the same as before, and the count starts once the killer makes contact with the survivor. 1, 2, blind. 1, 2, blind. On this next one, why don't you practice counting in your head while you're watching to see if you get the timing right. Nicely done. Now we're going to move on to a rather tricky one. When your teammates get pulled out of a locker, there is a moment during the killer's animation where they are vulnerable to being blinded. Due to the angle that you have to be positioned in, this will only work on lockers that have no extended walls. Here's the easiest way to remember how to do this. Make sure you're angled inside the imaginary killer cone we talked about earlier. And once the red aura of the survivor is illuminated for you, count to 5 seconds and then blind. 1, 2, 3, 4, blind. Another way to perform this save is to listen carefully for the sound of the locker door closing. Once you hear the squeak at the locker, wait a half second, then start your blind. This one will take a little bit of practice, but once you've mastered this save, it's a lot of fun catching the killer off guard. Speaking of catching a killer off guard, your flashlight is able to save a teammate from the killer's grasp while they're being transported to a hook. You usually won't find much success in this in higher ranks because most experienced killers know to look away when this happens, but you never know. Every flashlight has a standard range of 10 meters and doesn't require you to be on the ground level when attempting a save. Here's an example of what a 10-meter range actually looks like. If you think that's far, try pairing your flashlight with the focus lens add-on to increase your range. The standard and the sport flashlights both share a base battery life duration of 8 seconds, while the utility flashlight has a battery life of 12 seconds. You can increase the flashlight's duration by using battery add-ons or a low-amp filament. I'll include a link to the flashlight wiki in the description if you want to learn more about the others. Using a utility flashlight paired with a green battery and a low-amp filament provides you with the longest duration at 22.63 seconds. If a low-amp filament is not available, you can easily run double batteries instead and have a use duration of 22.36 seconds. Oh, and a couple fun facts. It does not matter if the low-amp filament is first in slot or second. Believe me, I've timed it. And the odd bulb is trash. It increases your consumption rate and it's just not worth carrying on the flashlight. Don't use it. Well, I think we covered the majority in this video, and hopefully you learned something new. Just like anything else though, practice makes perfect. So get out there and show them what you got. Thanks for watching this video today, and I really hope you enjoyed it. If you're not subscribed already, consider hitting that button and clicking the bell icon so you're notified next time a new video goes up. I stream full-time on Twitch, so you can catch me there Saturday through Wednesday at twitch.tv/SpookyLoopz. Big shout out to my patrons for your support, and I'll catch you on the next one.